UNISA Chancellor, His Excellency President Dr. Thabo Mbeki, members of Council, Principal and Vice Chancellor Professor Pule Nlengabula, members of Senate, members of University Management and Extended Management, esteemed professors, members of university community, respected guests, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Laurette Jacobs, our main guest and celebrant for today, I greet you all. On behalf of our Vice Chancellor, Professor Nlengabula, it gives me great pleasure and honor to welcome you all to Professor Jacobs' inaugural lecture today. Let me acknowledge Professor ZZ Ngosi, Executive Dean, College of Human Sciences, Dr. D.P. van Wyk, and Professor Jacobs' family, friends, and loved ones in attendance. We heartily congratulate Professor Jacobs on her achievement as she presents her inaugural lecture in celebration and recognition of her well-deserved promotion to full professorial rank. We join her family in their pride and thank them for the support they offered her throughout this long and bumpy journey. Professor Jacobs, this is a milestone that the university is proud to witness and celebrate with you. Professor Jacobs' inaugural lecture comes at a time when the university is still celebrating its 150th birthday, but again, at a time when the country is celebrating its 30th democratic anniversary. Her lecture comes at a time when the country and the institution are taking stock of what 3 decades of democracy mean for them, taking stock of what has been achieved and not been achieved. One might be justified to argue that, amongst others, some of the glaring challenges are economic hardships, lack of good governance, lack of social cohesion, amongst others. Professor Jacobs' tenet is that knowledge is power. Lack of knowledge disempowers and disadvantages the nation. One needs information to be knowledgeable. In her lecture, To Infinity and Beyond, Deconstructing the Information Science Curricula to Ensure the Sustainability of the Profession, Professor Jacobs, as she continues to shape futures in the service of humanity, argues that information is the cornerstone for knowledge generation and that its lack thereof undermines social cohesion, economic prosperity, and economic and democratic governance, amongst others. It is through her lecture on this topic that Prof. Jacobs engages the community about a topic that seeks to unpack the evolution of information and information professionals through the ages, the need for information organization and education for information professionals. As she shares her experiences and achievements with us, she will also surely cast some light on how she sees a deconstructed information science curricula sustaining the profession and benefiting future generations. In terms of today's proceedings, Professor Ngosi will thereafter introduce Professor Jacobs and will invite her to the podium. After Professor Jacobs' presentation, Dr. D.P. van Wyk will follow to give her response on the lecture without further announcement. I now invite Professor Ngosi to the podium.
On behalf of the Chancellor of the University of South Africa, Dr. Thabo Mbeki, the Vice Chancellor and Principal, Prof. Pule Nlengabula, the Acting Registrar, Professor Sipota, and the respondent, Dr. Brenda van Wyk from the Department of Information Science at the University of Pretoria, and Esingayi namhlanje, Professor Loretta Jacobs, who is the chair of Department of Information Science, and the inaugurant, I greet you all. Professor Loretta Jacobs was born in Polokwane, Limpopo, and grew in Johannesburg and Bloemfontein. She is the eldest of the 4 children and a first-generation academic. She completed her BBLIP degree at the University of Free State and continued with her studies at the University of Johannesburg, where she completed her honors and master's degree, both with cum laude. She also completed a diploma in technology-based education and training, postgraduate certificates in education, and a higher diploma in archival science, all cum laude, at the University of Johannesburg and Technikon, South Africa. Her DLIT at Phil was also completed at the University of Johannesburg and is entitled The Development of a Volunteer Program for Public Libraries in South Africa. The thesis aimed at providing public and community libraries suffering from depleted operational budgets with a workable solution by involving community members in the provision of much-needed services in their communities. Linked to the advancement of technology in the information science discipline, she enrolled for an advancement of technology in the information science discipline. She enrolled for a course in digital librarianship at the University of Tilburg in Netherlands. In 2020, she graduated from the University of Stellenbosch with an MPhil in higher education, again with cum laude. Ladies and gentlemen, can you see that this inaugurant is a cum laude candidate? Her MPhil dissertation was entitled The Development of a Framework for the Supervision of Postgraduate Students in an Open Distance E-Learning Environment. Prof. Jacob started a career in the academia as a lecturer at the then Technikon, South Africa, and she moved to the Department of Information Science during the merger. She joined Regenesis Management, which is a private higher education institution, as the manager of the Center for Knowledge Management. Her key responsibilities included the research and development of the new course material based on learning outcomes or unit standards, supervision and customization of the course material. She also worked at the Independent Institution of Education, also a private higher education institution, as a senior researcher and development facilitator. She accepted the position as research and development manager at the Institute for Performance Management and was responsible for conducting research and developing documentation related to organizational and employee performance governance, inclusive of establishing records management practices to promote institutional governance at local, provincial, and national government levels. In 2017, Prof. Jacobs rejoined the Department of Information Science at UNISA as a fixed-term contractor and was appointed permanently in March 2018. She was appointed as an associate professor in January 2022 and as the chair of Department of Information Science in June 2022. The full professorship was awarded in June 2023. Her research spans over a period of 20 years, and it includes areas related to archives and records management, technological developments, and use of information management, system management, records management related to organizational performance, governance, and recently education. Combining her interest enabled her to explore in more depth and detail open distance e-learning opportunities in higher education related to information science, as well as archives and records management. This has emanated in the composition of articles related to the use of mobile technologies in higher education, supervision practices in distance education, institutions related to information science, and the use of various learning strategies and styles in education of information science students. To date, she has been involved in the publication of chapters in 6 books, the most popular of which is surely the Research Matters textbook in 2022, which focuses on helping students expand their knowledge of research methodology. She has also authored and co-authored 20 peer-reviewed and published articles, and she presented papers at 14 national and 5 international conferences. To date, she has supervised 16 master's and 7 PhD students to completion, with another 20 master's and PhD students, which she is aiming to finish in 2024 and 2025. In addition, Prof. Jacobs was involved in the development of more than 50 study guides, performance management frameworks, and strategic plans during her career. Related to academic citizenship and engaged scholarship, Prof. Jacobs is a member of the South African Board of People's Practices, Library and Information Association of South Africa, International Council of Archives, and the South African Society of Archivists. She is also a member of the CODATA Task Group and Citizens Science for SDGs, which is an international task group aiming to assess, monitor, and report on citizens' science projects within respective countries, and how these contribute towards the achievement of sustainable development goals and the Inter-Pares. The Inter-Pares is a multinational interdisciplinary project aiming to design, develop, and leverage artificial intelligence to support the ongoing availability and accessibility of trustworthy public records. Prof. Jacobs is a member of the editorial boards of the South African Journal of Library and Information Science and the Moy Zion. Finally, Prof. Jacobs is married to David Jacobs and mother of 3 canine and 6 feline children, Sophie, Matilda, Fred, Moses, Tequila, Frenny, Garfield, Moo, and Lily. Ladies and gentlemen, may you kindly usher Prof. Jacobs to the podium to render her inaugural lecture titled "To Infinity and Beyond, Deconstructing the Information Science Curricula to Ensure the Future Sustainability of the Profession." I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Good day, everyone. To Prof. Lenkabula, Principal and Vice-Chancellor of the University of South Africa, Prof. Sepota, Acting Registrar, and Prof. Zetun Nkosi, Executive Dean of the College of Human Science, thank you for this opportunity and the warm introduction. Thank you also to Dr. Brenda van Wyk from the Department of Information Science at the University of Pretoria for agreeing to be my respondent. I would also wish to welcome all of you who took time to celebrate this occasion with me. If you Google the term of an inaugural lecture, it says that it is a lecture of sorts, related to the beginning of something new. Today I want to link my topic to this new beginning. To infinity and beyond implies that there is always something new, something wonderful that awaits us in the future. Linking it to the deconstruction of the information science curricula implies that we need to explore new ways of thinking and engaging with the education and training of information science professionals to ensure that they are fully prepared for a future yet unknown. So let me begin my story. Throughout history, the need to preserve information has played a crucial role in facilitating communication, connections, and knowledge generation. Information has always been the fundamental resource that shapes societies, empowers individuals, encourages innovation, and fosters human development. The unavailability of information undermines social cohesion, economic prosperity, and demographic governance, transparency, and social resilience. The need to share information has always been part and parcel of what we see as our human nature. Since the dawn of time, humans wanted to leave behind information related to their experiences. Prehistoric symbols were used by humans to convey information about their world. Petroglyphs and pictograms were used to share information with others about events such as hunting, animal herding, dangers, and death. The need to share information has always been part and parcel of this nature that we call being human. As human evolves, so too did their need to communicate. The cuneiform writing system in Mesopotamia, the Egyptian hieroglyphs, and Chinese logograms expounded information sources needed to communicate socially, economically, religious, and political information. The extent to which written records were created laid a foundation for efforts to organize and store information. As the extent of records about our existence grew, so too did our need to have someone looking after these records to ensure that they could be retrieved again. This led to the creation of the information science profession. To give you a bit of context, in ancient Mesopotamia, temples and palaces housed extensive collections of clay tablets containing administrative, legal, and literary text. In ancient Egypt, valuable sources of information were stored in temples, royal palaces, and administrative centers. In ancient China, imperial courts maintained extensive collections of scrolls and manuscripts for administrative, scholarly, and religious practice. Scribes, who were very highly educated individuals, trained in reading and writing, served as the custodians of these collections. They were responsible for managing the storage, cataloging, and preservation of information records. This gave rise to what we refer today as information professionals. Just to clarify, information professionals refer to the term of individuals who work in various capabilities or capacities as to manage, organize, disseminate, and make information accessible. They are the curators of libraries, archives, museums, information centers, educational institutions, government organizations, and corporations where information is preserved as significant assets. As the second oldest profession in modern history, the need arose for transferring knowledge and skills about the management and organization, as well as dissemination of information and information sources. During the ancient civilizations, knowledge was passed down through apprenticeships and informal mentorships. During the 17th to 19th century, the education of information professionals became part of what was offered by universities. However, it was only in the late 19th century that the first library school was established by Melville Dewey in 1887. Our modern-day society has expanded on the training opportunities of previous centuries, and we now offer qualifications through PhDs, master's, honors, bachelor, and undergraduate certificates in reputable information science schools and departments. In addition, the tradition of mentorships and apprenticeships is maintained through non-formal and informal training. The main aim of such non-formal and informal training is to increase and expand the skills so that information professionals can effectively execute their role in an ever-changing society. Given the constant flux in society that impacts on the offering of information services and resources, we found that many countries in Africa offer fully fledged 3 and 4 year degrees. They also follow and provide opportunities for postgraduate degrees through masters, honors, and PhDs. The reason for this is that it is important for information professionals to maintain a high standard and quality of knowledge, skills, and abilities. However, when we look at the international environment, we see that most universities offer only international or postgraduate degrees. Students are required to complete these degrees after they have completed a qualification or an undergraduate degree in a specialization area. This is different in Africa for most reasons due to the limited funding of higher education in Africa and the special unique needs of the communities in Africa. Focusing on undergraduate education to train a large workforce helps to diverse populations, support literacy initiatives, and advance community development programs. In the midst of offering training to information professionals so that they can help with the upliftment of communities, information professionals were recently forced to take stock of their profession amidst vast technological changes. Through technology, and because it was always part of our profession, the profession has grown. However, developments such as the internet, the web, artificial intelligence tool requires the adaptation of new workflows and services to embrace such innovations. In the fourth and fifth industrial revolution, one can almost refer to the development of technology as the catalyst that marginalize information professionals. Where the fourth industrial revolution focuses on the use of technology to fuse and transform industries and economies through the automation of processes and the creation of new business models, the fifth industrial revolution aimed to converge physical, digital, and biological domains to unprecedented levels of connectivity, intelligence, and innovation. The consequence of these technological advancements is that the nature of work conducted by information professionals have changed forever. If we look at what is now needed because of this marginalization, we can see that information professionals need to become citizen scientists and researchers, data scientists and analysts, IT specialists, ethics and equity advocates, user-centric experience designers, digital preservation specialists, knowledge management specialists, open access collection curators, heritage managers, digital humanities specialists, digital literacy educators, and information architectures and specialists. This requires that new roles must also be equated with new skills, all of which we need to build into our education and training qualifications for the future. Such skills, for example, include information literacy skills, technological proficiency, data analytical skills, skills to design user-friendly interfaces, communication skills, cultural competence and awareness skills, research skills, marketing skills, customer service skills, innovation skills, data management skills, decision-making skills, makerspaces skills, generative thinking skills, video building skills, information management skills, adaptability skills, and critical thinking skills, to name but a few. However, revising the way in which we offer qualifications in information science to cater for the speed at which technology is advancing and impacting on the profession is no easy task. Within the South African context, legislation and regulations exist that provide guidance on how qualifications may be offered. Here we look, for example, at the South African Qualification Authority Act, the National Qualifications Framework Act, the Higher Education Amendment Act of 2016, the Higher Education Quality Committee regulations, which provides guidance on the accreditation of higher education programs and qualifications, as well as the higher education regulations that provide detail on guidelines and procedures for the accreditation of higher education programs and qualifications. Of importance to note within the South African context is that these legislation requires students to complete a specific number of credits to be awarded a qualification. These credits are linked to the content and notional hours of a qualification and specific exit level outcomes or learning objectives that students must achieve. For example, if we just look at the professional degree, bachelor's degree of information science, we can see that on NQF level 8, National Qualifications Framework 8, students need to complete a total of 480 credits to complete the qualification. If we equate 1 credit to 1 notional hour, it means that students need to be involved in this qualification for 480 notional hours. In addition to these credits, the Library and Information Association of South Africa, in collaboration with the Council on Higher Education, promulgated the qualification standard that guide the knowledge and skills required for information professionals. The standard requires information professionals to showcase competencies across 9 different subdiscipline areas to present after completing modules to the value of 480 credits. If we look at these knowledge areas, it includes foundation knowledge related to the history and legislation of the information profession, selection, acquisition, and organization of sources, information access and retrieval, ICT applications inclusive of AI technology, management of organizations and services, scholarly communication infrastructure and services, reading literacies and learning, research methodology, interpersonal engagement related to negotiation skills, and teamwork as examples. So what then is the problem? From the changing roles and skills needed by information professionals, one can argue that the education must expand to cater for future demands on the profession. However, current educational qualifications, and especially our formal qualifications, are restricted in what is offered as part of the curricula. The CHE in 2013 already noted that curricular structures often lag changes in society, affecting the competence of graduates produced in comparison to industry demands. The question we then need to ask ourselves is, how should information science curricula be deconstructed to ensure that information professionals are able to fulfill their roles in the future? What we need is a solution. If we search for that solution, we have a number of authors that already provide us with direction. For example, Barnett and Coate propose that curricula should be used as the major construct in proactively preparing individuals to engage actively in their social, economic, health, and political environments. What is necessary, as argued by Maposa, is that curriculum planning receives urgent attention, which involves the design and development of a qualification, modules and courses that encourage broad-based thinking on teaching, learning, and skills development. Reels concur by explaining that due to the rapid democratic, economic, and technological development, changes in professions demand of educators to adapt curricula as a plan of learning to educate change, or to bring change about. Curricular transformation is imperative, as suggested by Tella, to ensure that students are prepared to deal with challenges such as high levels of poverty and inequality, social transformation, and technological advancements. If we are to achieve such transformation, Houston and Kingsbury recommend that as information science educationalists, we start looking at curricula in a different way. They argue that curricula should be seen as purposeful, intended experiences, content, learning activities, and learning collaborations as a course of action to increase discipline-related knowledge and understanding. Curricula, whether at undergraduate or postgraduate level, refer to the whole set of learning experience to meet the requirements of a module or a qualification. Changing perspectives on our views of curricula may provide opportunities for students to obtain greater autonomy on their career paths and to achieve acknowledgement of prior learning. Just to summarize this quickly, what is our problem? We are looking for ways in which curricula can be deconstructed to provide expanded opportunities for learning. The reason, though information professionals are now on the list of occupations in high demand, the profession is in danger of disappearing due to issues such as technological advancements, financial limitations, and ill preparedness for future roles due to slow changes in the education system. A possible solution is the application of a flexible curriculum framework. So what is a flexible curricula? Flexible curricula can be used to enhance learning related to contemporary, local, and global conditions that are professionally and socially important in the contemporary world. Flexible learning is about the when, where, how, and at what pace learning occur for a diverse student body. The main aim of a flexible curriculum is to empower students to develop a mindset necessary to understand and tackle vast environments, economic and social changes. In an African context, it is particularly important that the flexible curricula create centrality unique to the identity and culture of Africa. The question is, given the strict legislation and regulatory information, educational offerings in South Africa, in the South African context, must adhere to, can we go the route of such a flexible curricula? The answer is yes. If we look at sources such as the proposal for undergraduate curriculum reform in South Africa, or the policy on the recognition of prior learning, credit accumulation and transfer and assessment of higher education, the white paper for post-school education and training, the national policy on credit accumulation and transfer, as well as the policy and criteria for credit accumulation and transfer within the national qualification framework, opportunities exist to see curricula not as restrictive and closed, but in fact as open, flexible constructs that can be adjusted to remain relevant to societal changes. Given the context of these sources, a number of key directives and principles can be considered towards establishing a flexible curricula. These include, for example, that a flexible curricula acknowledges and recognizes and accommodates students. As students have different views, experiences, and requirements for learning, the aim is to provide a flexible curricula that provides for opportunities for all learners to actively participate in formal learning. A flexible curricula recognizes diversity as a strength in the learning environment that promote educational equality, social justice, and holistic development of every student. To achieve this, we need to ensure that we reflect on the diversity of identities, background, and experiences of students. We make provision for equitable opportunities for learning. We respect cultural knowledge, traditions, values, and learning methods. We understand that there's differences in personalities in the way in which students learn, and we provide opportunities for critical thinking, reflection, and dialogue. In addition, our curricula should be flexible about the starting point and the progression pathways. Different timelines should be given to complete qualifications, and pathways of duration must be available. There must also be different levels of preparedness, and provision should be made for these. Exit level outcomes must be addressed in high-level modules to offer flexibility in completing foundational level modules. Interdisciplinary courses can be used to broaden students' perspectives and prepare them to address complex multidisciplinary challenges. Flexible degree tracks may also allow students to focus on specific areas of interest, such as cybersecurity, data science, user experience design, and the utilization of artificial intelligence. Specifically related to the proposal for undergraduate curriculum reform in South Africa, 3 key guidelines are to be considered for a more flexible curriculum. These include setting new parameters for the duration of qualifications, providing alternative starting points to allow for diversity and preparedness, and varied progression pathways through credit accumulation via micro-credentials and recognition of prior learning to improve graduate outputs. Taking this into account and towards a more flexible curriculum, as well as looking at theories pertaining to authors such as Bernstein, John Dewey, Barnett and Coates, as well as Bitzer, I propose the following framework towards creating a flexible curricula for information professionals. As you will see, the three components of developing a flexible curricula is included: looking at alternative starting points, progressive pathways, and duration, and look to that there are 5 key components of curricular design and development that needs to be considered. The first, related to alternative starting points, focuses on curriculum as outcome and intended curriculum. Curriculum as outcome refers to those outcomes that we want students to achieve at the end of a qualification, while the intended curricula focus on 2 components. First of all, the content that we want to include in a qualification, as well as the type of assessments that we want to include. In addition to that, and to ensure and support progressive pathways, we focus on enacted and experienced curricula. The enacted curricula focuses on how the content and the knowledge that students engage in with the starting points are used to help them to practically apply what they have learned. The experience curricula focuses on how that changes their perceptions of life, the perceptions on their key important role in the profession and in society. Finally, in terms of the duration, the curricula's quality is there to ensure that we comply with legislation and regulatory guidelines, that the qualification will be accredited according to SAQA, the CHE, and the Higher Education Foundations and regulations. So how does this apply to the information science curricula? First of all, we need to identify core exit level outcomes relevant to the knowledge that we want students to learn and to have. Secondly, the core modules that students must complete must be very clearly articulated, and those should be specifically on higher education or higher exit levels. We need to classify competencies and skills that credit can be awarded for based on credit accumulation and micro-credentials. We also need to offer pathways for students to enter formal higher education. We need to provide opportunities for elective modules or specialized tracks within a curricula, create personalized learning opportunities through assessments that align with personal interests, allow students control over when and where they want to engage with the curricula, and open our registration opportunities, as well as different modes of delivery to cater for unique student needs. It is also important that we provide students with access to open educational resources, open access sources and webinars with more knowledgeable others. Feedback and feed-forward opportunities should be offered to students during assessments to engage actively with learning objectives. There must be engagement with peers and encouragement of peer evaluation, as well as check-ins with academic and academic support staff. This should encourage reflection through self-assessment to build additional credits. The utilization of technology is imperative to enhance flexibility and access to achieve outcomes. There must also be opportunities for students to obtain acknowledgement for real-world learning. Credits should be provided either through micro-credentials, the application of credit accumulation and transfer, or the application of recognition of prior learning. And just a word on these. Credit accumulation and transfer is the process of collecting academic credits through various educational experiences and transferring them between institutions and qualifications. Credit accumulation and transfer is imperative in a flexible curriculum, as it offers students the opportunity to pursue their academic goals via educational pathways. Recognition of prior learning provides the opportunity for students to demonstrate their learning and competency acquired through formal and informal experiences. Recognition of prior learning can be used for credit recognition or credit exemption to create opportunities for students from diverse learning backgrounds and experiences to access and progress in higher education. Individuals are usually asked through recognition of prior learning to provide documentary evidence to support their claims of knowledge and understanding related to specific outcomes. Micro-credentials are small, specialized certificates or credentials that validate the acquisition of specific skills and competencies. Micro-credentials focus on targeted learning objectives that can be earned relatively quickly. Micro-credentials are designed to address specific skills or competencies within a broader discipline and is often associated with on-demand skills training that can be applied immediately. If we bring all these components and the application of a flexible curricula together with the qualification standard for bachelor degrees in information science contextualized by the Council on Higher Education, we can create room for formal as well as informal and non-formal learning opportunities infused into a flexible curricula. As you can see from the image, flexibility can start by creating opportunities where credit is given to students who have started in different degrees and want to move over to an information science degree. Credit can be given to formal and non-formal training through a credit accumulation and transfer process, the acknowledgement of micro-credentials, and the process of recognition of prior learning. If we have to put all of this into a mathematical formula, or what Albert Einstein called infinitely delving into the nature of the universe, we may state that to achieve an infinite flexible curricula for information professionals, we need the following. First of all, advocating for flexible curricula through our formal programs, our CATS, our RPL, and our micro-credentials. Enhanced collaboration between educational and training institutions, industry connections, and professional bodies. And finally, detailed planning to explore and expand human-computer interaction, cater for the unique needs in Africa, and to contemplate future consciousness and intelligence. To conclude, curricula like the universe can be viewed as continuously expanding. Just like the universe, our understanding of various subjects and disciplines grow over time. Curricula must aim to capture this expansiveness, to incorporate diverse perspectives, emerging knowledge, and interdisciplinary connections. Only in that way will we ensure that the future and infinite existence of the information science profession will remain, since students as future professionals will be sufficiently prepared to embrace their living environments. And finally, a word of thanks. On a professional level, to the University of South Africa for the many opportunities of growth and development that is provided to academics. To colleagues in the Department of Information Science. Colleagues, we are indeed the Department of Excellence and definitely the greatest department in CHS to work with. It is my greatest wish to see all of you shine and to celebrate the inaugural lectures of each of you in the future. On a more personal note, to my late grandparents, Opa Kali and Oma Letty, Opa, this one is for you. You've always wanted someone in the family with a doctoral degree. Well, you have two, and now you have one that is a professor. I know you are very proud. Everything I know about being an academic and a supervisor, I learned from my late supervisor, Prof. Magdalene Bester. She set high standards and taught me the value of quality, critical thinking, and determination. To my husband, Davi, if it wasn't for you, I would probably not be standing here. Thank you for the caring, the love, the hours of helping me look for information, the editing, and your patience when I forgot that I have a life outside of the academe. To my parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends, thank you for your support. And finally, to all my four-legged children, the lovely thing about them is that they love unconditionally, no matter what the circumstances. This is always something to look forward to. I thank you.
To infinity and beyond, a truly thought-provoking topic for this inaugural address. But first and foremost, let me congratulate Professor Jacobs on her appointment as full professor and thank her for the opportunity to reply to this address. This is truly an encapsulating topic really capturing the universal nature of information. And it offers a novel and a comprehensive account of the scientific discipline and its tangents, its subdisciplines of information science, and also, furthermore, the ensuing of the information professor. It places the emphasis of learning and teaching at the hand of a well-developed curricula. Personally, what stood out for me in this address was the importance of understanding where we come from so that we can prepare effectively for where we are going, understanding that innovation has always been ingrained in studying, teaching, and researching information and information science. Information has been the norm for information science through its earliest days, even before the Gutenberg press and similar innovations in their respective times. We see that the ubiquitous nature of information as well as technology has always been part and parcel of the study of information. Hence, the importance and the continued importance of information science. So what does this topic mean for us in our current times? We are reminded of the omnipresence and of the evolving nature and the pivotal importance to build information science on solid theoretical foundations of those theorists before us, but to also grow our own timber and expand on this for changing times, for new nebulae, new innovations. So Professor Jacobs' address clearly indicates that this is a continuous journey of discovery, innovation, re-engineering, re-evolution, new ways of doing things, expecting the unexpected. As we have seen in recent developments with conversational AI, generative AI, that has taken our worlds by storm. Even though these evolutions have been a long time coming. So, over many decades and even centuries, we have experienced these constant changes within the study of information and information science. And we could not have the luxury, or would I rather say the disadvantage, of moving into a comfort zone when it comes to research, learning and teaching information science. The mere velocity of information requires and necessitates effective research, looking at information needs, changing information needs, information behavior, how this connects with information system, and how this requires constant innovation. And for that purpose, knowing our roots are so cardinally important. Knowing our social epistemologies, the philosophy of information underpinning the very science of information. Looking at information processing, our cognitive sciences, how that feeds in. Computer science, our tangents with information technology. Not forgetting information ethics. And the revolutions that we have seen and that we will still see in the future. So drawing this comparison between the nature of information and our infinite galaxies out there is very effective. As within our tumultuous universe in space and time, information science has been at regular intervals experienced these information booms, as the philosopher Luciano Floridi would often refer to them. And we have seen our own fair share of new creations, new nebulae, often in an explosive way, in a disruptive way. Hence, our own references to information revolutions, information society, digital economies. And to compare that, what is in fact happening to our world, to our galaxies out there. Which brings me to the very important aspect of why do we research, why do we teach? Ultimately, to cultivate our information professionals. That is our ultimate endeavor. So, the theme of To Infinity and Beyond is evident in the products that we deliver out there for an information-intensive economy. Dr. Jacobs takes us right back to the earliest known and recorded accounts of information communication, looking at information behavior back then, looking at glaring disparities during the ages where access were not afforded to everyone. And we can see how far we have come by studying these trends. In fact, Professor Jacobs reminds that the unavailability of information undermines social cohesion, deters economic prosperity, and ultimately impacts negatively on sustainable development and sustainable information. This is evident from the earliest of time, that is, known recorded times. There might be information before that that we are not yet familiar with, but undeniably, the universal nature of information calls for a universal approach in this scientific discipline. We look at how we approach learning and teaching in its broadest sense, and we realize the multidisciplinarity of information science. We realize the importance of interdisciplinary research and the need for transdisciplinary collaboration. And we must understand the nuances and the differences of these so that we are able to transform, to deconstruct, to re-engineer. And indeed, this places a high demand on educational leadership to develop the correct curricula and programs, and not merely stay abreast of content knowledge, although that is extremely important. We need to add new insights and new knowledge. This then invariably asks from us that more than to concentrate simply on what we teach, but how do we teach? How do we design? Dr. Jacobs drives this message very clearly home from a South African perspective, but also looking at with a broader responsibility, a regional responsibility for Africa, for the global South, where digital exclusion and the digital divide is still very much with us. And these social justices must be improved. They must be redressed to prevent any further cognitive social injustices. And that should be foremost upfront with our teaching agendas. Within our own South African higher education ecosystem, we are acutely aware of where we come from, where disparities did not serve the people. And we see our responsibility to continue with these deconstruction, decolonization in a responsible way, and to broaden this on an international level with our international partners. We've just seen that BRICS have been expanded. This again tells us how important the role of our educators are to keep curricula absolutely on point. This brings me then to the key constructs of Professor Jacobs' address that really stood out for me. So taking into consideration where we are coming from, what is best for Africa? We have been part and parcel of so many renewal. Are we there yet? What else do we need to do? How can we add and build on cultural sensitivities? How could we prevent further biases to slip in? How can we work with our own quality assurance and accreditation frameworks to work towards sustainability, to work to add for the global good, the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals? So then also looking and going beyond curriculum design lies our parallel responsibility to have fit-for-purpose programs, to look at what Professor Jacobs referred to as the flexible curricula, where this centrality and uniqueness of identity and the culture and the richness of Africa can find a place in an enacted curricula. And in this enacted curricula, connected researchers are of cardinal importance. So it's time to make room for other starting points as well. Ultimately, from a scientific research, there will be applied sciences in practice, in real life, in the connected world. And this is why it's so critically important to reconsider our assessed curricula. How do we assess? Is it correct? Do we build our students? Are we student-centered? How is knowledge transferred so that we can have competent digital citizens in a connected world that can use this information that they have obtained in their formal education, in novel situations, in novel creative problem solving. So this boils down to managing expectations, but whose expectations? How do we, for instance, prevent an unintended and a hidden curricula to slip back again and deter our progress with unintended consequences? And that is a great responsibility. We have a responsibility to meet social expectations, diversity, morals for the greater good. And this should be managed very effectively. And in a great sense, this is already covered in existing curricula, but that awareness should be the focal point so that we can build on-point curricula. And in the information sciences globally as well as in South Africa, many of these storms and misconceptions have been managed over time very effectively. And we have seen effective transformation in information schools and even LIS schools, where all sub-disciplines have been reconsidered, looking at a metacognitive lens, looking at literacies, fluencies that must translate into competencies within the world of work, within the world of industry. And that is why it's so critically important to do, as Professor Jacobs said, to move in parallel strings, looking at training, looking at apprenticeship, alternative points of entry, micro-credentials. All these are aptly underlined by the address of Professor Jacobs, and we need continuous training and networking with industry to make sure that our offerings are on point. So the demands on higher education in information science and leading research are high. And from this futuristic address of Professor Jacobs, we see the ultimate importance of having flexible, quality curricula underpinning the foundational philosophic and scientific knowledge, and to use these effectively for innovative strategies going forward. It emphasizes the need for highly skilled curriculum designers involved in all aspects in our connected world, and this includes teaching with technology. In appreciation of what was discussed in this inaugural address, I now offer my closing remarks. I found this very insightful, and it honestly broadens horizons and begs us to reflect and think of how we are going forward. How do we venture out? How do we research, test, research again, question, redesign, and develop and keep curricula aligned with what is needed out there? We've got to be out there, be in the world that we are teaching about, be involved in information-intensive industry. Moreover, we must understand human behavior, be the human in the loop for this connected world, for the information user, the creator, and the disseminator of information. So with information science sub-disciplines, we now see that this profession is already listed on a high demand list. Again, our efforts for enacted curricula open doors for further possibilities, for the funding, further application within the world of work. And this truly is a move to infinity and beyond. We should not delimit ourselves and think too small. We should not only think about solar systems, we should think above and beyond, move beyond galaxies, move beyond universes to truly enact on into infinity and beyond. Lastly, my message to Professor Jacobs and her team. Professor Jacobs, I want to thank you for the dedication and the passion that you have through many years offered the profession and the science. With your ongoing research, your vast industry experience, coupled with your extensive scholarly output, really optimizing what you can offer and pay forward to this profession. I want to wish you and your team the very best on this explorative and innovative journey. Thank you.
On behalf of Council, VC, and Senate, we welcome Professor Laurette Jacobs to the community of elders, community of scholars, community of full professorship. We congratulate you, Prof, on having reached such a significant milestone in your life and in particular in your career. UNISA is proud to welcome you amongst its ranks, amongst its professorial ranks, and UNISA is looking forward to listening and learning more and more from you in future. Thank you for your fascinating and highly educational presentation. What I personally learned from this lecture is the important role of information professionals as the custodians of significant assets within the society, but also the importance of the type of training they go through. We know that information specialists and professionals are an important asset amongst us. Thank you once more, Prof. Jacobs, for the enlightening presentation. We are looking forward to learning more and more from you. Thanks are also due to Professor Ngosi for her kind introduction of Professor Jacobs to us. Thank you, Dr. Van Wyk, for responding to Professor Jacobs' lecture, and thank you to all of you who joined us in this ceremony. Permit me to thank all colleagues who made it possible for us to be here, colleagues from DIA, colleagues from multimedia, and colleagues from facility management, colleagues from ICT, and colleagues from protection services, but above all, colleagues from the college. Thank you and good evening.